Last year I took a look at the Wii, a plug-and-play console ripping off the wildfire success of the Wii. And badly, but the Wii just scratched the surface of all the knockoff Wiis that are floating around. There are dozens more. There's the WoW, the Winnie, the WiiWii, the MiiWii, the V, which Elaine looked at on his YouTube channel, the Zone, which Rerez says he hasn't covered yet, the Woo, spelled with a U this time, the Wii spelled with E's, which isn't even a console, it's a DVD player, the iGame Sports. The hell kind of sport is that? And today's specimen delivered fresh for the holidays, the Lexibook TV game console. While the stock photos of families on the box with blatantly photoshopped controllers in their hands seem to be having a good time, you can tell because one of the kids is holding the controller upside down. And look at all the value in this package. 200 games loaded onto the system? That's way better than the Wii's 80, which turned out to be 62. The console feels completely weightless, like a thin plastic shell with nothing in it. Xbox 360, 7 pounds 9 ounces. Wii, 2 pounds 9 ounces. Lexibook, 0 pounds 8 ounces. Half a pound in a big body. The system comes with 2 wireless controllers, which, just like the Wii, are specifically designated player 1 and 2 so that only one of them actually works. The controllers are fine, but the buttons feel really clicky and stick sometimes, and the manual warns that if you have any other consoles running, other wireless controllers will screw with the Lexibook and stop the controllers from working. You play this shitty console, and only this shitty console, damn it! When you boot up the system, you're taken to a screen with 4 menus: sports games, fun games, education games, and general system information. Fun games, huh? So nice of the console to acknowledge that sports and edutainment games blow ass. Navigating these menus, you'll regularly spot a mouse cursor, Windows close and minimize buttons, and sometimes even a file option, all of which do absolute squat. And just to make it a nightmare to find anything, both the sport and fun categories then have at least one sub-menu where most of the console's games are stashed. It all just makes the console feel roughshod and unfinished. But enough talk, let us on to the games! Gotta start with something that uses the motion control, something like, swimming. Let's get into thrilling athletic action! Oh, no! No joke, this was the first game that I tried on the console, and it opens with a cutscene running at eat shit frames per second. And in the actual game, they forgot to animate your character swimming. Seriously, you shake the remote to swim, but your character just floats forward completely motionless, which must really freak out the other swimmers that actually are animated. This is a basic racing game, and near as I can tell, you just shake the remote to move, flailing the remote as hard as you can continuously for about a full minute at a time, and no matter what you do, the dickhole racer next to you always gets a huge burst of speed at the very end to make sure that you never win. And I don't really know what the game wants you to do, since none of the buttons seem to work, and nothing that I did got the speed meter to max out. This is almost literally a minigame from Mario Party 4, so I guess party minigames are the benchmark for what to expect out of the console. Now, to my very legitimate surprise, they did actually get 200 games onto the console. We'll discuss how later. I'm not going to cover all 200 games because we'd be here over an hour and most of you would be bored shitless. Like, I don't need to set aside time for golf, basketball, jump rope, or tennis, right? They're all the most stock motion controller, shake remote to hit stuff sports titles ever. Games that can be played perfectly well with a single button, only it's mapped to a remote waggle instead. Apart from golf running like crap and freezing up when you turn too much, you know it's bad when they can't even be bothered to adapt basketball. It's a replica of a basketball arcade game. They even have tennis on here 4 times, with beach volleyball, badminton, and ping pong all being basically the same game with different graphics. So I'm just going to cover a choice sampling of the games so you have a good idea what a steaming pile of crap this console is. We'll start with the sports games because they were trying to rip off the Wii. We have to see how well the motion controls work. Fencing. In case you were wondering, no, the single-digit frame rate of the swimming intro was not a fluke. This is set up as a fighting game where up and down move you, swing the remote to attack, and hold left or right and swing to parry. You're not given any time to react to your opponent's motions, so you more or less throw attacks and parries at random and hope for the best. The game also seems to register random attacks being thrown when the remote isn't moving, because it seems like the build quality on the remote is so shitty that pushing buttons sets off the motion detection. Luckily, just throwing an endless stream of attacks with no degree of finesse or strategy seems to work though, so screw it. Little Ninja. Enemies run up to you with swords or throwing stars, and you hold down to block and swing the remote to attack. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say swing the remote? I meant just wiggle the remote a little to throw an endless barrage of attacks. And unlike Wii Sports Resort swordplay, it literally doesn't matter what direction you swing the remote, because this motion controller can't read specific motions. Snowball. You walk back and forth throwing snowballs at other kids. All the kids take several snowballs to put down. You have to be really precisely lined up to land hits, and even though the game is split into rounds, you have no indicator of how close you are to the end of any given round, so it feels like the game takes forever. And just to make this even more unpleasant, the kids all cry whenever they're defeated. Also, a lot of the sports games have tutorials telling you to swing the remote, but none of them actually have the Lexibook's controllers shown in the demo. So, what gives? Baseball. Shake the remote to bat and pitch. Sounds pretty simple, except when you're batting, you have to swing just a little bit before the ball actually reaches you, or you'll inexplicably miss for no clear reason. And the ball has a stuttering frame rate as it flies like this was straight out of a Tiger Electronics game. And just to be annoying, you then have to shake the remote non-stop to run to your base. But the absolute kiss of death in this game is the AI will get into spells where it just hits several home runs in a row, and there isn't a damn thing you can do to stop it, because unlike pretty much every other baseball game in existence, you don't have multiple pitches to strategically switch between. All you can throw are fastballs, and how hard you swing the remote to pitch doesn't seem to matter either. So it's entirely down to the random number generator, and the AI will just automatically get a crap load of runs and leave it impossible for you to win.
Oh my!
Bowling. It's again the most stock bowling game. Move side to side, set a curvature, and shake the remote to throw. Except this one has a twist. Because the controllers are so poorly made that pushing buttons jostles the motion sensor, you will constantly throw the ball on accident. Go figure. Fishing. Shake remote to cast, wait for fish to bite, shake remote to reel in, wonder why the completely wrong controller is shown in the directions. It's almost as boring as actual fishing. Jogging. Shake the remote to run, shake it too fast, and you fall on your face. And no, this isn't a racing game, even though there's a character selection screen, stats for each avatar, and other racers on the path. This is a clone of Wii Fit that thinks you're actually jogging in place along with the remote for exercise. Well, I'm not. And I'm pretty sure nobody else on Earth ever has. Magic Fairy. A 2D shooter with a third-person view where you fly back and forth shooting whatever the hell random sprites they felt like adding. Witches, flying ninjas, jack-o'-lanterns, and you might think I screwed up putting this in the sports section, but I didn't. You shake the remote to fire, and you basically have to continuously shake the remote, bobbing up and down the entire frickin' time that you play. And that really sucks! And since you quickly build upgrades up to a huge spread fire homing attack, it's pretty dirt simple too. Football. You just use the arrow buttons to tilt your head back and forth to block balls. The confusing thing is that if a ball is thrown down the middle, you have to hold up to deflect it or you lose points. And the infuriating thing is the game sporadically won't even detect holding up! How do you mess that up? So, you want to know why all these games have instructions showing the wrong remotes? It's probably because they're showing the remotes from the V console, which also happens to have the exact same controllers as the WoW. Yeah, and the iGame Sport seems to have these same controllers as the Winnie, and the Zone has the same controllers as the MiiWii, which also shows up in several tutorials for games on the Lexibook. Apparently these companies weren't satisfied with having one knockoff Wii console on the market. They decided to hedge their bets and make several, blatantly recycling their hardware and software like 2.5 Men recycles jokes. And that's only the beginning of this rabbit hole. I found another Wii knockoff plug-and-play system called the Reactor 32, not to be confused with Wii knockoff plug-and-play system the Reactor 42, that has literally the exact same case and controllers as the Lexibook. And a separate manufacturer of crapbox emulators called AtGames apparently has a Sega Genesis emulator system that also has the Lexibook's housing and controllers, which confuses the hell out of me because AtGames was also making officially licensed Genesis emulators shaped like the actual console. It's like one great big incestuous orgy pile of crap video games. Ready for another layer of what the hell? Here's a sports game called 100 Meter, where you shake the remote to run and in less than a minute, the game's over. Here's another called Walking Race, which is literally the exact same game. And here's 110 Hurdles, same game again, only having to push a button to leap phase through hurdles. Notice they all have the exact same sprites, characters, backgrounds, and gameplay. There's like a dozen games like this on the system, all less than a minute long and endlessly reusing the same assets like there was an Olympics bundle floating somewhere that just threw in here. And what is with the copyright dates on the games? Copyright 2008 SR 33115? We have a few more sports titles to highlight though, because in place of having a Wii's nunchuck, some of the sports games make a single player use both controllers at once. It's a pretty neat idea. Doesn't make the games any better though! Variety show. Okay, first off, what is with the two derpy girls on the title screen? You play as a clown juggling bottles thrown at you by shaking the two remotes. The player 1 remote in my left hand seems to work fine, but the player 2 remote barely works at all. Either I have to shake the player 2 remote like hell to get a response out of the damn thing, or the game just gets into a pattern where it'll register about 20 swings in a row even if the hand in question isn't moving, locking up the other controller. So this game's completely unplayable. Of course, it is a game about juggling, so no great loss. Super Slider. This is a skiing game where each remote controls a pole that you swing to steer and control your speed. Again, it seems like the player 2 remote's motion detection barely works, but Super Slider has its own problem because even the player 1 remote has about a full 1 second lag to any of the inputs being registered. And since you can only turn in the direction of the remote that's working, it's pretty much unplayable too. And you know what, let's just throw Canoe Slalom in with this one because it's the same damn game and it sucks crap for the exact same reason. Boxing. Another game with shit frame rates, no surprise. Press button up to attack head, press button down to attack abdomen, press button start to den fence. Call it a hunch, this wasn't originally made in English. Player 2 remote still isn't working, but here it works out since I can use the buttons on the 2 remote to block while the 1 remote punches. This game's annoying because of dickish design. You can't land hits on your opponent while they're launching attacks, which wind up more than a friggin' falcon punch, and they'll get into phases where they just throw like 6 punches in a row with no pauses while charging up a super move, and you pretty much just have to sit there and take it. I'd say this game has actual mechanics and strategy like a real big boy game, but there's only one opponent, and then the game ends. So, nope! Archery. Use the start key on remote 2 to draw and fire, and the arrow keys on remote 1 to aim. It's easy as crap because there's no wind. I'm just glad to find a game on this damn system that works right. Except there are only 3 targets and then it's over, so enjoy the whole 2 minutes of functionality while they last. Rock climbing. Shake remotes to climb rocks while using the arrow buttons to target rocks and to indicate whether you move your hands or your feet. If you try to move to a rock the game has arbitrarily decided is out of reach, you die instantly. And pretty much every single rock is out of reach unless you play in one insanely specific way that is pure trial and error to figure out. And sometimes you die instantly anyway because remember, remotes are really damn sensitive and will go off by accident by just pushing buttons. You know, I'm getting kinda glad that these worthless avatars keep falling off a cliff. Horse racing. I'm not even sure how the hell this one works. I just know you have to swing both remotes continuously only for your horse to run out of stamina long before the race is over, and you lose. Step aerobics. Imagine DDR, but instead of a dance pad, you are pressing nothing but up and down on 2 controllers repeatedly with only 2 crap songs to pick from and no difficulty settings. Does it sound pointless? It is. At the end, you're given a list of calories expended because this is another Wii Fit knockoff where you're meant to do actual aerobics to a barely responsive shovelware system. Go figure. But a funny thing happened while I was recording the footage for Step Aerobics. the motion controls on the Player 2 remote suddenly started working fine, and now it was the Player 1 remote that I could barely get to respond, the complete opposite of how all the other games on the system have been performing. And then it suddenly clicked why the dual controller games are barely working, and it's not because the remotes are defective. Kinda. Remember that little excerpt that we read out of the instructions earlier? And the manual warns that if you have any other consoles running, other wireless controllers will screw with the Lexibook and stop the controllers from working. Well, it turns out you don't need other consoles running for that to happen. If you're playing anything that involves using both the Lexibook's controllers at once, the signals from the two wireless controllers will interfere with each other, so that only one of them actually works at a time. The little bulbs sticking out of the controllers are a telltale sign that they probably communicate with the console via infrared signals to make them cheaper to produce. Not only are these signals very easy to scramble, but they give the controllers a very short functional range and stop working entirely if anything blocks their line of sight to the console. If any physical obstruction is between you and the system, you can't play it. Or hell, if I sit or lay too far to the side of my futon, the signal and console get misaligned enough to miss a ton of button presses. These controllers barely work! As for two-player games, the only way around the signal interference is to keep the two controllers as far apart from each other as possible so their lines of sight to the Lexibook don't get crossed, which is hard to do when several of the sports games are explicitly designed to have one player holding both remotes. But I did try Super Slider again, and I actually got the controls almost perfectly responsive. You just have to play with your arms stretched as far out to your sides as possible. Yeah, this is a comfortable and immersive way to play video games. So that was the Lexibook's sports games. Hamstrung by bargain bin hardware, phoned in to where they're barely games in the first place, laden with basic design problems for things that should have been softballs, and several embarrassingly barely run in the first place. And much like the Wii, the sports games are the only games on the system that actually use the crap-ass motion controls in any capacity. All the rest of the games on here are just played with the buttons holding the remote sideways. But before we dig into the allegedly fun games, let's take a detour through that third category. Under the classroom menu, you'll see categories for art, music, and pictures. The art has two options. Coloring lets you take 1 of 10 pictures and color them with a paint bucket tool, and painting is an emulation of Microsoft Paint. Specifically, it's the Paint program from Windows XP. Only take out the cropping, custom colors, curved line, text, and magnifying glass tools. Now you know me, I love me some Microsoft Paint, and if I say so myself, I can use it to whip up some fairly decent art. But trying to use Paint with a D-pad and no easily reached buttons to use the tools is like trying to paint in real life with both your arms broken. Plus, you can only save one picture. Then there's a music tool that I think is meant to be used to write and play sheet music, and again has the interface of an old Windows program, and it looks like you could do some neat things with it if you could figure out the interface, but that's a mad-sized if. Then you have a picture album with a few snapshots from the other games, the More menu just plays the opening cutscene from Ping Pong, and that's it! We have exhausted the entire classroom menu in about 3 minutes, so this whole category on the menu, pretty much completely worthless. So good news, all that's left to look at is the fun category. Bad news, that's a really friggin' big category! We're really going to trim the fat out of covering the catalog here because a lot of the titles in this section are either random phoned-in side-scrollers and 2D shooters, or just bland games that run way too slowly to be any fun. And most of the games listed under More are random pointless card and casino games. There is a halfway decent chess game on the system, except for the fact that you can't castle in it even though the AI can, and I'm pretty certain the game only gives you the choice of difficulty as a formality before defaulting to Curb Stomp Oblivion Hard Mode at all times. But whatever, we're gonna have to dig deep for stuff that's actually worth talking about here. Puzzle Bobble. Oh hey, it's a clone of Chip Away. I grew up with that game in the arcade. It was a lot better than this. You shoot colored orbs into similarly colored pieces to make them vanish. The controls for aiming are stiff on here and there's no line to help you aim, but what kills it is that the colors you get are randomized so poorly the game will repeatedly give you multiple colors that have long since been cleared from the board, making this thing infuriating to play. But if you really need your Chip Away fix, there's another clone on the system called Bubble Boy that's even slower, clunkier, and equally poorly programmed. Square. Oh hey, it's a clone of Tetris. I grew up with that game. The pieces do not speed up as the game goes on. You're stuck at this boring minimal speed indefinitely. Also, I don't know why the game has an AI opponent when there is absolutely zero interaction between players. Once they lose, you just keep playing unimpeded. I guess to rub it in player 2's nose that they suck. Bomb Superman. Take Bomberman, make it play about a quarter of its normal speed, kneecap all the animations so the enemies just jitter around, and generally just make it garbage. And if all that wasn't enough concentrated crap factor for you, the level exit doesn't work! I'm just trapped forever in an empty maze. Oh, there's a key. I found it and picked it up, but the game drops all your power-ups when you die, and I'd guess that includes disintegrating the key that you needed to clear the stage, and it never comes back. For crap's sake! Wave Man. This is a weird take on Snow Brothers. You play as a kid who runs around shooting bugs and dinosaurs, except that doesn't actually kill them. It encases them in bubbles, which you then have to push away, and if you touch the bubbles after they've been pushed, you climb inside them and bowl over enemies, which that kills them. It's easy since your basic attack is effectively a field nuke, but given that you can barely control your movement most of the time, and the game likes to drop enemies right on top of your head, it's not very fun. Motorstorm, a really janky motorcycle racing game. The controls are stiff and jittery, the whole 3 levels have a ton of obstructions like crap loads of cows and chickens all over the road, and the lead AI racers are so insanely fast that one minor mistake will cost you the race. But if that's not enough terrible bike racing action for you, then try mountain biking. Anytime that you touch an obstacle or racer, who will go out of their way to ram into you, you have to rock the control pad back and forth to avoid wiping out. So you know, the game sucks. Go Bang! Go Bang is a tic-tac-toe game on a really big board where you have to try and get 5 in a row. This exact same game was on the Wii with an AI that was a tough son of a bitch, but I am able to beat the Wii's AI by prolonging a game or finding quirks to exploit. This version? No. The game's AI is utterly flawless, to the point that battling it to a draw seems to be the absolute best outcome that you can hope for. The game has an easy and an advanced difficulty, but I'm convinced that all the easy mode does is flash pieces every time the AI sets up a move to scream, "Block them here, you stupid bastard." This thing is unbeatable. Robot. Huh. Neat logo. You guys are lucky Blue Sky Studios closed or your asses would be sued! A Pac-Man clone with shitty level designs loaded with dead ends. Highway Racing. Hi, Road Fighter! I look forward to you pissing off Rerez when he gets to this console! It's a top-down racing game where the camera is zoomed in so tightly that you have pretty much zero chance of dodging any of the obstacles on the road, so you just run out of gas and lose. Rabbit Slipe. I think this is a knockoff of Super Monkey Ball where you play as a rabbit in a ball crossing a narrow path and constantly falling to your death because the controls are insanely slippery. 5 Diamonds, a puzzle game where you slide jewels together until you match up 5 of the same color. It's an interesting spin on a puzzle game, but 3 or 4 new jewels get added every single turn, so unless you're really freaking good, you're gonna run out of moves pretty quickly. And the way all the jewels constantly turn around leads to a visual effect that seriously hurts your eyes. Play bad games, get a headache for free. Dinosaur Factory. Parts for dinosaur toys come down an assembly line and you click matching colors. This is a game made for toddlers. Blazing Fighter. A really crappy fighting game. 5 bland characters with no story or background, only 2 buttons for attacks, crappy super moves that either never hit or can't be dodged at all, and a garbage frame rate. Sword Soul. Pretty much the exact same fighting game as Blazing Fighter, only now you have swords and only 1 attack button. Well, that and both fighters can huck an endless stream of projectiles for free, so what is even the point of actually fighting? Running. You run to the right, jumping over tree stumps. And here's the cool part, every now and then you get an item that lets you run to the right slightly better. Raindrop Adventure. You play a little yellow fruit collecting raindrops while a red fruit tries to stop you, and your only means of defense is to temporarily disintegrate blocks in the floor so that you and your pursuer drop through them. Problem is, you can't jump, so your only means of attack can easily screw you and get yourself killed. And when I went to record footage, the stupid little prick kept turning around for no damn reason when I tried to attack, trapping himself and getting me killed. The system's now sabotaging me to try and stop the review. Perfect Thief. It's an overhead game where you have to navigate a series of obstacle courses made of moving spiky balls and monsters. It might actually be an interesting game if the controls didn't blow ass. You move way too slowly to have the reaction times that you need, and I think there's something wrong with the game because every jump registers as a double jump, which makes the controls even worse. Over speed racing. This is your pretty basic driving game. You don't have enough fuel to reach the end, so you have to crash into fuel trucks to reload. I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. And with this game's dreadfully annoying 8-bit sound effects, I think they openly stole from Pole Position. Ninja Hero. This is a beat-em-up game, like a homeless man's Ninja Turtles arcade. You have a good range to your attacks and the backgrounds are pleasantly eye-catching. It might be a decent game if the controls didn't suck. You can't move diagonally, the game will regularly refuse to register you moving up or down, and sometimes it just ignores that you're pushing the control pad at all. Plus, the starter enemies can just block your attacks indefinitely or just run away, like they want out of the game just as much as I do. Space War. Oh boy, this one has an actual plot! AD 2146, an alien fleet invade the Earth. The peace in the Earth is completely broken from then on. A war that decide humans' life and death is on the verge of breaking out. And if you missed all that, you can read it again by pushing the Cell Set button. Neat! It's a crappy Space Invaders clone. You can tell they were trying to copy the utterly brilliant Space Invaders remake on the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation, but this is a cheap knockoff that plays slowly, has nowhere near as many mechanics, and the few special weapons you can pick up suck and can't be saved for later. It's not terrible, I've just played the good version. Tarot Maze. This is a cross between a puzzle game and an RPG. You play as a knight who's trying to get through a dungeon swarming with enemies, picking up items to boost your stats, and picking up keys that you have to ration carefully to cross new paths. It's a really interesting game, but unfortunately it seems to be completely broken. Loads of the basic enemies just can't be fought with no explanation whatsoever, like they're bugged out or something, so no matter what I do, I don't get very far before every path will just be closed off by impregnable barriers. I've tried literally every path and combination of keys possible. I can't get past a few minutes. The one time you have an interesting game, you screw it up. Tarot Maze may have been a bitter disappointment, but against all odds, there are a few decent games on the system. Wolf is Coming has you play as a wolf that gathers up pigs and takes them back to the entrance while evading around big-ass pigs with tusks that throw projectiles. It's a decent little puzzle game with stimulating mechanics, since the more pigs you carry at once, the slower you move. Crazy Step is literally just Q*bert, but it's Q*bert not screwed up. But probably the best game on the system is Future Warrior. This is a pretty cool overhead action game where you play as a soldier with a spread fire and a dodge roll, blasting through enemies. You die in one hit, but the controls are fast and responsive and you can climb into mechs that give you a health bar. It's pretty fun. That said, it looks like a short game since there are only 6 levels on the map, and I think Square Enix is going to sue someone because the level completion music is the signature jingle from Final Fantasy. If you go poking around the System tab on the main menu, it tells you that the creators of the console have a website that's updated with new games that you can download to your console through an SD card, which, that's pretty cool. There's just one teeny tiny little problem. The instructions don't tell you anywhere what frickin' website they're talking about, nor is it listed anywhere in the console's physical instruction manual. Innocent design oversight or deliberate gaslighting? You make the call. I did go to Lexibook's website. They're a French toy company that makes a ton of family-oriented products, and they're still selling this TV game console on their site if you want one of these abominations for yourself, but I can't find anywhere to put actual new games onto my system. Although, granted, I don't speak French. Lexibook even has a few other consoles, like a 301 plug-and-play system, and the Lexibook Connect Sports Challenge, which... Wait, those are the same sports games as the Wii, but where did they even get... The rabbit hole is bottomless! Now, I wasn't lying when I said that the system has 200 games. I counted them. It's the way they get to 200 games that's misleading, because about half the games on the system are random Famicom Rom Hacks. Hidden in the fun submenus is a big-ass list of cheap 8-bit homebrew games. None of them seem to be mods of pre-existing NES titles, which means no legal complications, but it's also bad because the games are complete amateur hour crap! A lot of the games on here are so slapdash they aren't coated with any win conditions, several are just bland filler shooters and puzzles, and a lot of them are barely games at all. Plush Dog. It's whack-a-mole, but with dogs, you sicko! And there's a huge lag to actually moving your hammer to where it feels like the controller's broken. Oh, right, more broken. Seaman. You play as a diver collecting gems, none of the enemies hurt you, and if you run out of air, you just float to the top and recharge automatically. Near as I can tell, there's no way to lose. You just play until you can't stand the awful music anymore. Access Block. It's a standard Candy Crush or Bejeweled puzzle game, only slowed down to where it takes several seconds for a single move to go off. And sometimes you almost immediately run out of moves and lose. Add 'em Up. A puzzle game where you're given a table of numbers and you try to find zones that perfectly add up to the numbers that you're given. Trouble is, though, all the pieces you're given are single digits, which grievously restricts what you can actually do. It's insanely easy to get caught in situations where no moves are available to you turn after turn after turn. And I had to restart because the graphics are so garbage that some of the 8s look like 0s. Attacking. You play in a first-person perspective, raining bullets down on a town, hoping that every now and then you'll eventually find a helicopter to shoot at on pure accident. It's a crappy game already, but the screen glitches a lot with ugly texture popping constantly around the edge of the screen, and sometimes after I did shoot a helicopter, the screen just started wobbling non-stop. Star. It's the Tron Light Cycle game where you and other players leave walls behind you and the last one to crash wins. It's not a bad game, and it's the closest these 8-bit games will come to quality, except the controls have just enough lag to them that I just can't get any precise turns. It might be a good game on better hardware, and if the music didn't make my ears bleed! Brave Boy. This is some batshit take on Pac-Man where you need to grab orbs to free a sword, but there's a fat ghost and a skinny ghost chasing you, and if they catch you, they make you give them a bath. The kiss of death is that you can barely get into these walkways, so the ghosts will catch you and force you into bath time. Cute Fish. You select one of 6 sprites of aquatic animals and then have it swim around a virtual fish tank doing nothing. Pressing A makes your selected creature go underwater on a line, juke wildly all over creation, and make other fish leap out of the water. So maybe this is a fishing game, but I can't figure out how to life of me how you actually catch a fish. Is this just an aquarium display thing, or did they forget to program the game? Because trust me, both are equally probable explanations. Dark Castle. You're in a maze with monsters that kill you in one hit, and the only way to kill them is to touch an item that temporarily makes you invincible. So, another take on Pac-Man? Blocks keep warping around to block you, and the game is heavily prone to glitching so that enemies don't spawn, and you're left stuck with nothing to do but to raise your useless score endlessly. But on the bright side, it's probably still better than the actual Dark Castle game people have been requesting. Hua Rong Dao! Okay, I honestly have no idea how this game works. I think it's a sliding puzzle where you need to get the big face out through the bottom, but then I noticed that some blocks have their eyes open or closed, which might just be the badly compressed graphics. Your guess is as good as mine. What in the hell's going on here? Ice hockey. Neither side can score because the goalies are flat-ass impenetrable. I think you have to shoot multiple times to knock down the goalie, only that doesn't happen because the game is too damn slow. This isn't even the only shit hockey game on this system, and it's near impossible to score on the 32-bit version too. Honestly, how hard is it to program these? Lawn Purge. It's a lawn mowing game, and if you touch any of the big items in the yard, which you will because the controls are crap, you run out of fuel and die. You can barely even tell where you've mowed and where you haven't, and there are non-stop rain clouds constantly regrowing the grass. I fought the lawn, and the lawn won. Play cards. It's solitaire so lazily made that they can't even show you how many cards are left in the stacks. With graphics so choppy, it's honestly hard to tell the difference between suits, and with an endurance-testing song playing over the whole thing. Rocket Man. You're a guy with a jetpack flying between 3 floors shooting bad guys. You'd think the worst part would be the laggy and barely responsive controls, but they're not. The worst part is the game will bug out at random to where the level doesn't end and you're left stuck in an empty limbo forever. Russia. It looks like a Tetris clone, but none of my buttons are actually doing anything. The block's stuck. Help. Help me, I think the game's broken. Oh, never mind, it finally just decided to let go. Anyway, it's a Tetris clone where the pieces leave empty spaces and screw you. Strong. It's a puzzle game where you push blocks to reach the exit, but only certain blocks can be pushed, and they look identical to blocks that you can't push. They couldn't be bothered to paint bucket the blocks into 2 different colors, what the hell? Stub game. Towers of Hanoi. Really? I've been playing this exact same game since Batman Activity Center on my Windows 95 growing up, and at least there, the game had Batman! Super Racing! Hi, Road Fighter! I look forward to you pissing off Rerez when he gets to this console again! Tower! Oh, holy crap, a game where they actually tried. You play as a ninja roaming the floors of some castle, gradually filling out mazes looking for an exit, and if you run into a monster, it changes to a zoomed-in combat mode where you press A to launch attacks. The graphics look more Atari 2600 in terms of being primitive, but otherwise, it's not too bad. Twin Copters. I think you match tiki faces, but whether you're right or wrong, nothing seems to happen. Is this even a game? Vectron. I remember seeing this in the Angry Video Game Nerds ColecoVision episode, but I have no idea how it's played. You control an eye that shoots lasers, but you can only shoot in 5 directions that'll never hit shit, and you can place boxes on the field that block your own shots, and then you just run out of meter and die. I do not know what does it mean. And just in case all those crappy Famicom ROMs aren't bad enough for you, several of the bad games are on here more than once! Robot and Defensive are the same game, a painfully slow 2D shooter where the enemies keep suicide charging into you, except one has you playing a tank and the other, a noodle man. Labyrinth and Burrow are the same game, crossing a maze with a shitty candle and constantly getting killed out of nowhere since you can't fight the enemies that block your path. Pulver and Monster War are the same game, roaming a city shooting enemies that don't stop respawning, and there seems to be no win condition with the same ear rape music! Battlefield and Warrior are the same, no win condition and constantly run out of ammo. Undersea and Bomb Time are the same game, and they're both slow as hell ripoffs of Bomberman with enemies that have no pattern whatsoever, so it's hell trying to actually kill them. Boxes World and Hamill are the same, basic ass box sliding puzzle that ran way more smoothly on my graphic calculator in high school. Enchanter and Ghost Palace seem to be the same game, 2D shooter with no clear objective, and both ripped off from Dragon's Den, which does have an actual objective. Final Man and 5 Days are the same crap turret shooting game, and Radish Field, a game where you have to cross a tiled floor without touching any square more than once, is a reskin of a game called Ass Art. Ass Art! And that's still not the end. Not content to have one package of knockoff Olympic sporting games on here, they have 2. A few of the 8-bit games are all sports-oriented, all share the same graphics and interface, and all control like ass. Art. Shot Put and Discus both have the same caveman player avatar and both play the same way. Hold B to charge throw, fall on ass trying to figure out how the hell you get it to throw. I'd swear they were trying to rip off Winter Games with how awful the controls are. We've looked at a pretty significant chunk of the games on the system today, and while it's been a trip, I've saved the best for last. A final few games to drop your jaw and break your brain. Special mission. Some insane madman tried to remake Contra from the NES. I can't really gauge how faithful an adaptation it is since, well, I suck at Contra. It's one of those die-in-one-hit side-scrolling action shooters, but you can aim and shoot in all directions, even when jumping and ducking, so it plays fairly smoothly. The problem is your basic gun sucks and doesn't kill anything but basic soldiers in one shot, and there's a grand total of one weapon pickup early in this first level. Get hit once, and you're pretty much irreparably screwed. You also can't jump if you land in the water, so fall down once and immediate total screwage happens again. And no, there's no Konami code to juice up your lives. Call it a hunch that this game is vastly inferior to its forebearer in every significant way. But this isn't the only one-to-one recreation of a classic on this system. If I told you that there was a game on here called Candy Bear that was a direct recreation of a beloved gaming staple, and no, it's not Candy Crush, what game would you guess they were copying? Any guesses? Any theories that you would like to lock in? Yes? No? Give up? Candy Bear is a point-for-point recreation of the original Super Mario Bros., but instead of Mario, you play as a Care Bear. And no, I'm not kidding about this. Same level layouts as the original, mostly the same enemies. There's the substitutes for the Piranha Plants and the Koopas. They even bold-faced steal a ton of music and sound effects from the Mario franchise. So we'll steal everything from the Mario games, but we'll change out the sprites, and Nintendo will never notice. Well, they recreated Mario's levels. They cut almost all the actual gameplay mechanics. Running, gone. Warp pipes, gone. Oh, the pipes are still there, you just can't actually use any of them. Warp zones, gone. Hammer Brothers, gone. Gaining extra height by jumping off enemies, gone. Extra lives for hitting the top of the pole, gone. Jumping while ducking so it looks like you're doing push-ups, gone! The turtles that stand in for Koopas, they just die when you jump on them. You can't use their shells as projectiles like normal. And the hype music when you get a potion that substitutes for the invincibility star, gone! You have a dog bone and a little red ball in place of the super mushroom and the fire flower, only I had no idea what in the hell the red ball did. Unlike Mario, who changes costumes to let you know that you've got a power-up active, your bear doesn't do anything to let you know that you have projectiles, probably because they didn't want to or just couldn't make more than one character model show up at once. It's nice that items just trigger immediately when you hit them, but it feels like a lot of the pickups have been removed from the original. But don't worry, they give you a crap load of extra lives to make the game easy, in spite of the defective controller that sporadically misses your inputs. Although the extra lives are determined by your score, and the score keeps resetting to 0 for seemingly no reason. I think the most pathetic part of this whole thing is their substitute for Bowser. In the original game, you just have to jump over Bowser's head, touch an axe, and he dies, but to fight his replacement two-legged dinosaur thing here, you have to grab a fire orb and then shoot him 50 times to kill him. It's so many hits that you get 2 extra lives from your score by default just for fighting the boss. It's funny to me how the Hammer Brothers got the boot out of the game entirely, but Lakitu is still here and he's a UFO now. I played up until World 4-3 before the game shat itself inside out. See, because they screwed with the jumping physics and stopped Mario from being able to phase through the bottoms of certain platforms and didn't QA test their damn game, World 4-3 has a jump right off the bat that's physically impossible to complete. Huh. So the game cuts off almost exactly halfway through. They literally half-assed it. The Mouse and the Cat. It's a clone of Pac-Man starring Tom and Jerry. You play as Jerry with clones of Tom playing the ghost. Instead of pellets, you're collecting cheese. Instead of power pellets, you have magic lamps that briefly turn you into Spike the dog. And instead of Pac-Man, you have a terrible game. This thing runs slowly, with a lot of the subtler mechanics from Pac-Man like fluctuating speeds or differing AI behavior completely stripped out. The thing that dooms this whole game is that unlike regular Pac-Man, you can't eat pellets while you're transformed to attack ghosts. and that really does make the game nigh unplayable, because apart from scaring the Toms away from an area for like 3 seconds, you have basically no defense against them or any way to get through an infested area. And they respawn almost immediately when killed, and their AI will have them group up and trap you, and there's basically nothing you can do about it. The only real help you get is that if 2 Toms run into each other, the game will often glitch and fuse them together so that there's one less enemy hunting you down. They'll stay that way until you kill a Tom and the game suddenly realizes that one's missing. It's comforting to know that such a baffling and major glitch was left in the game, so I know I'm dying from bad design and not because I suck. But the game that made my jaw drop the most playing this system has got to be Cake Shop. This is kinda sort of a ripoff of Diner Dash, maybe? You take cake orders from customers, push a button on an oven to make cakes, push another button to ice it, and then serve it to your customers. It runs ungodly slowly, there's almost nothing to do, and the levels take for friggin' ever to complete with 0 save function. You have to play this shit in one sitting. But that's not why I saved this game for last. I saved it because of this. Your customers are Batman and Superman, neither of whom are wearing any pants. Superman is at least wearing a shirt. Batman's just in boxers and a cape, and the creepy grin makes me think that Crazy Steve from All-Star Batman and Robin finally lost what little of his fudge he had left. And once you serve them their cakes, they just come right back. But ho, if you get past the first level, you do get a 3rd customer added to your store. SpongeBob SquarePants! I kept playing, mainly to see if anybody else gets added to the roster, and for as rock simple as this game is, a lot of the basic shit is bugged. You can buy upgrades between levels, and most of the prices are wrong. These ovens that cost $2,000 actually cost half that. The first thing that I bought were quick shoes to make my avatar move faster, and they also bug out her AI so that she walks completely around the room every time I ask her to do something because she's too damn dumb to walk in a straight line to the target. And she literally walks entire circles around once you get the 2nd set of speed shoes. So I'd say the speed boosts kinda wash out, wouldn't you? A lot of basic commands you'll have to click multiple times to get her to actually do it, and no, it's not because of the controller, and at one point her feeble brain fell out entirely and the game wouldn't let me pick up cakes anymore until all my customers just got pissed off and left. As the game goes on, you get more customers at once to try and make it a resource management deal, except if you just don't take the money from customers, it prevents new ones from coming in so you can stall for time. And once you buy 1 extra oven and icing station, let alone all 3, you've basically won the whole game already because the game will never overtax you. There is no difficulty curve here, it's just the same level over and over. I know because I played all the way to the end of this diarrhea waterfall, which is probably way more than anyone else on Earth ever has. Took about an hour and a half. I played to the end because I wanted to see if any other twisted mockeries of pop culture mainstays show up to your shop, and they do! The last few levels add Spider-Man! Call it a hunch that this incarnation won't be in Across the Spider-Verse. And do you know what happens when you reach the end of the game? A banner of Asian text that I can't even read. I thought this console was French! What were they thinking? Who made this? Why are your customers Batman and Superman? And why aren't they wearing pants? And that was the Lexibook TV game console. A titanic piece of crap that wasted hours of my time. 200 games and maybe 2 good ones across it. Which, to be fair, a 1% success rate is still better than Digital Homicide's record. This system isn't an internet meme the way the Woo is, so you should be able to easily get one for yourself if you're just itching to light about 50 bucks on fire. Or you could buy 1 good game made by professionals or support about 4 indies instead of 200 games of bullshit barely running on trash hardware.